Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Leigh McFarlane with us today. She is founder and CEO at the soap company of Nova Scotia. This pod is presented to you by podper.com. If you want to start or scale a podcast, go to podper.com. Leigh, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks so much for inviting me here, Charles. I'm really grateful to be here. What are we up to these days? Well, we're working really hard to grow the soap company in Nova Scotia so that we can get more and more people feeling great in their skin. That's our whole mission, is to make things for people with chemical sensitivities, which that means that they're good for everybody. So that's where we're at.
Right. And is that your first company? Because I saw construction, you had a construction company, I feel, a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, it was 3 decades ago, almost 4 decades ago now. And 1986, first company was a construction company. Then coupled that with property management, a country store, gas stations, truck stop, restaurant, 24-hour operation. Then eventually multimedia production. And then now on to the soap company in Nova Scotia. And I also have a store as well. So, yeah.
So you've alternated between entrepreneurship and public service. So how does that work? Like it seems to me that one is very, very entrepreneurial and the other is like none of entrepreneurship whatsoever. So tell me a bit more about that.
Sure, you're absolutely correct. So when I was 18, I joined what I would consider the ultimate in public service by joining the military. So for me, that was the quickest way to get out and working. I wasn't interested in doing post-secondary education at all. And so I joined the Army. But my then husband and I didn't want to move. And so the only way that we could figure out was to start a business. And we had renovated our house and learned over 3 years how not to do pretty much everything. So we're like, what can we do with this information that we've gained? And we were like, all right, we're going to start a business and then see if we can't scale that business to the point where it can support us. We can get out of the military. So that's what we did. And that led to all those many other businesses. But by the time I was in my mid 30s, I was pretty exhausted about being in business. Sadly, the marriage was over, had a couple of kids, and I finally was ready to go to post secondary education. So I went to school, learned multimedia production and design, and like it was a huge passion for me. Interestingly, my military time was in communications, but on the technical side of things, so fixing phones, running wires. Then, a couple decades later, I'm learning how to put ones and zeros together in order to create websites and stuff. And out of that, I started a couple multimedia companies, one with some partners, one on my own. Eventually, started teaching and then made a move. And in that move, decided I was pretty exhausted about the various ways that I've been working, and I just wanted some security. And I thought that would be the right thing as a single mom. And so I got a job in the private sector. That job lasted a couple of years, maybe, then for another 6 months doing instructional design. Finally into the public service, which I thought, hallelujah, I have made my security now. I'm not meant to work in a big structure like that because I act pretty entrepreneurial. So I'm not I'm not the best employee because I tend to do things the way I want them to be done, and sometimes to a degree that they're not meant to be done. And so by 10 years later, approximately, I had enough and it was time to come home to Nova Scotia and start my own thing. I just didn't know exactly what that would be right off. So that's how that works.
And then soap, why go into soaps?
Well, I love food. Food is my passion. And I thought I would do food, but food is harder to scale. It's perishable. It's hard to ship. It's just way more complicated. And soap and personal care products, laundry, all those things. I had spent my lifetime in a body that was irritated by synthetics and chemical scents, and never finding the products that made me feel great in my skin. So I was like, well, there's got to be other people like me. And I knew for sure that my father was like me. Sadly, he was gone by then. He had died at 59 and of cancer, and he had suffered his whole life way worse than me with chemical sensitivities. And so I thought, well, there's Dad, there's me, there's so many other people. Let's start a company focused on making only unscented products for people like me. And so that's what I started. And very shortly in, people were like, oh, yeah, but we love scents. And I'm like, no, don't make me do it. But I didn't understand the difference between unscented, or sorry, essential oils and synthetic fragrances. So now we have both lines. So the unscented is very important. And for the people who only can use unscented, regardless if it's natural or not, that's there. And then we have the scented line, which is also very, very much loved as well. So that's why soap. It's not perishable. I could scale it. I never called it a small business. I always called it a growing business because there are so many people with skin out there that I figured we could get it to a lot of people. So
Right. And did you created your own soaps at first? And nowadays, where are the soaps built?
So I did. I needed some advice, so I got in touch with a friend of mine, another entrepreneur who had a soap company for many years in PEI, who I knew, and that is where I had been before I came home to Nova Scotia. I called her and I asked her for her advice, and she said, "Do you promise not to open a soap company or a soap store in PEI?" I said, "Yes." And so she just looked for like an hour, and she told me all kinds of stuff. I was bookmarking like crazy, and she put me on to a book by Sandy Main. Don't remember the name of it. I have since lost it. And that gave me the foundation of what it was. Okay, basic soap. I wanted it to be very simple, have like a template. So we've got this one thing that we do, and then we change it up with what we put into it to make it smell different or feel different. And then from there, it was like, well, laundry powder I've been making for years. So, make our own laundry powder, and then bath and foot soaks. And then people wanted lotions, and then people wanted deodorant, and all the other things that we do are because people asked for them. And, once you see that there's a need, then you fill it. And if it makes sense, there was a time in 2018 when I stomped upstairs to my computer at like 2 in the morning, surrounded by hundreds of little tea lights that were just not making me happy. And I just deleted about 60% of my list. Felt a lot better, went downstairs, finished the job, and then really made things tighter after that. So I don't make it all personally myself now. We've got a wonderful team of people called Soap Pros who do make the products now. And my responsibility is spreading the word, new product development, and creative design. So that's my main focus now.
And where do you sell the soaps? Is it mostly online or also in retail? Then tell us about how to get into more retails and how to make more sales online.
Yeah, so boy, both of them are really challenging. So I remember when I launched the first retail website, online store rather, I I hit publish, and then I sort of went like this, like as if I was going to get a wave of orders coming at me, right? Well, no, it was crickets for a long, long time. So let's talk about that first. How that grew was very gradually. I'm now on the third type of online platform that we've used. It's Shopify. Love Shopify, absolutely. It's great to work with, and we drive sales to their combination of through our Facebook. We're quite active on social media. Also have done quite a bit of online advertising as well through social media, and very active with our email campaigns. Got that really well in hand last year, I would say. And what we're finding is that once we have a customer, there's a fairly predictable return rate for them. So that's nice, which is great. With our also with the retail in the early years, drove it by basically couch surfing every weekend and driving all around to do different markets and spreading the word that way as much as possible. A lot of hard work, a lot of sleeping on the road, like literally, like in my car on the road. But that's the work you have to do to get the word out, right? And then with the wholesale, my first wholesale account was in, I think, September 2014. And then I started by doing a craft show. Some entrepreneurs around here had seen my products. I hadn't even thought about doing wholesale, and they saw my products and they said, "Well, you should go do this show. It's a craft show." And so basically, I started in wholesale by going through craft, and craft is very different than going through like grocery or regular consumer goods. because there's keystone pricing. So basically your wholesale price typically is half of the retail price, suggested retail price. So learned a lot through that. Worked with a lot of smaller retailers, a lot of craft stores, farm market type stores. Our products did well in natural stores like, what would they be? Oh Lord, I can't remember the name. Health food stores. That's what I was trying to get at, and some baby stores as well. And just basically by contacting people, doing this wholesale show, it was the Atlanta Craft Show here in Halifax, and then eventually doing Can Gift, which is in Toronto, and eventually launched a wholesale website for Canada, and then one for the US as well. Did one show in New York with mixed results, and we've done one, I think, in Philadelphia as well. Fortunately for us, we had shifted into grocery in 2018, largely by going into Sobeys at the end of that year. Sobeys is one of the big national grocers here in Canada. And so we were offered 23 stores with 13 SKUs. That took about 3 or 4 years to make happen. And it was from the so I very naively, I'm like, oh, look at my stuff, right? And I took my little box of laundry powder and a few other things to Steve Reed, who was the guy who was in charge of local at the time. And he came and visited me twice, told me to sharpen my pencil, make sure that I was going to make money, and he talked to me about UPC codes and the importance of GS1, which is a whole thing, GS1, and getting your product's image so they can be used in a flyer, for example, and get on a planogram so that you're on the shelf. Eventually, by about 3 years later, Steve had retired, and he'd given me the name of the new person that had taken over, Linda Stewart, who's amazing. And one day and this goes to the whole thing about using your gut and listening to your gut. I was driving home from a meeting with my entrepreneur group, who I meet with every 6 times a year or so for a couple days. And very critical. That thing is, you need that group of people. And I was driving past the head office of Sobeys, pulled into the parking lot, called Linda and said, hey, I just thought I'd connect and see if you wanted to talk about my products. And the timing was perfect because she was looking at Christmas at that time. She said, when can you meet? I'm like, well, I'm in the parking lot. Like I'm a big stalker, right? And so I went up, we met, and that was, within a couple or 3 months, we had our products in 23 stores. And then we just kept going from there. Now, I will say that we went in there and we have since changed the way that our products looked, the packaging, what the products were several times since then, including going through a full rebranding in 2022. And then changing UPC codes on all our bars in 2023. They've been very patient and good with us to work through all that process, but it was important for us to make it easy as well. We've also since gone from 23 stores to now 92. And then at the end of this month, we're shipping to another 26 in another set of stores that's related to Sobeys. And that has happened because of we continue to provide good customer service. We work in partnership with the retailers. It's really important. They're there to sell the products, and if the products aren't selling, they aren't going to want to have them on the shelf. And it's up to us to help promote them, right? To go in and do demos, to meet the people who are on the floor, to help educate the people who are working on the floor about what the products do. And I guess at the end result is that, or the most important thing is, it's really all about people. We're making products for people that are going to be sold by people to use. And if we don't remember all of that and how important that relationship is, we're not going to be successful. Long answer.
Yeah. And the scale part of it, I guess that would be as well online. What kind of ads do you do to get more online sales?
So we did a 9-month project to basically, it was on Facebook, and we're getting ready now. We stopped that in March, and we're reassessing everything, and we're seeing where we're going to go from here. We started We were working with an agency, which was great because we were learning as well from them. It's very complex to get it all going when you have no idea what you're doing. And we'd only ever done like some boosts and stuff like that before, and very limited posting or ads rather. But basically, it's really, really important to keep a very close eye on your return on ad spend. So, how much of the ad spend is going towards your bottom line? When you are spending $1 to make $1.20 in sales, is that going to be enough? And no, it's not going to be. Like, we figured that we needed to be like about 3.5 at a minimum in order to be able to pay for the product, pay for the fulfillment of that, and then be able to contribute the representative amount to the bottom line or to the carrying costs of our company, the overhead costs. So really important to keep a super close eye on that, get really knowledgeable about what the return on ad spend means and what it's actually covering, and be able to make decisions quickly so you can shift and change direction. Very, very important.
Right. And what's your goal in terms of revenue this year? What do you want to achieve?
So this year, our goal is to hit $1 million. That's my goal. I need to hit $1 million this year. That's the goal.
How will you do so?
How will we do so? Well, this is where we're looking at the wholesale scaling. So adding in the different stores that we've got, and then resuming the online social media ads. I really want to take a hard look at the Google ads and TikTok as well. Those I feel may be quite different in terms of the cost per sale. I'm not 100% certain, but we're going to be resuming those activities, I believe, in June, May or June. Yeah. And based on what we saw happen last year, from June until March of this year, we had exponential growth in terms of the amount of sales. There was one month, I think it was November, that we did more sales in that month retail than we had done the whole previous year in our online store. So it really does make a difference. But if you're not protecting the bottom line and staying profitable, then it's all for naught. The other thing that we're doing as well is we're talking with some people about distributing our products. So one of the challenges and barriers to growth in terms of, to retailers is distributorship. And so we have been trying very actively for the last year to get a distributor. And it is really challenging. We've had a couple of really encouraging conversations in the last 2 weeks, literally. And another one that we are sending some products off to. So I'm cautiously optimistic that will, at least one of those will work. And we have had a bit of a flirtation before with a couple different people for distributorship. It didn't work out, and learned a lot from that. And I learned that there's a lot of questions that we need to ask. As a result of that, we ended up getting most of our products listed on GS1. So that, although that money, which was like about $30,000, was spent a couple of years before it needed to have been spent, it's done. And now those products are there. Unfortunately, it was with the packaging that we have now. So it'll be a combination of those three things. So distributorship, increasing our wholesale here in Atlantic Canada, and also building the online retail.
And what's new in your industry? What are you observing?
So we work really hard to keep things simple, and more people are becoming aware of how important the ingredients are that are used in a product, the effects of those on their bodies, right? And so when I was doing a demo on Friday, I was in one of the Sobeys stores in Halifax, and I love doing that because you get right up talking with people. Every single person that I spoke to who was interested in taking a sample of laundry powder, and like very few people won't take a free sample, they almost to a person had some type of sensitivity that they needed to speak about. And this is a huge issue. And when I have an opportunity to speak with someone, we're talking about not only the soap that they're using, but their deodorant. What do they wash their clothes in? Are they using fabric softener or dryer sheets, which in my opinion are poison? I can't go through that. I can't go down that aisle in the grocery store because I get a headache right away. So I think perhaps more than anything, it's this awareness about the importance of having clean products to use on your body. It's challenging rising above the noise of the products that are greenwashed. So the ones that appear to be clean, but then you literally peel back that second to see the second underneath layer, and it's like, oh my gosh, what all is in there? So that education piece is ongoing.
Very cool. Where can people find out more about you, Leigh?
SoapNovaScotia.com. Very simple.